My name is Scott Holden, and I currently live in Hopple Creek Canyon outside of Springville. And I'm a pianist, and I'm chair of the piano program at BYU. And last night I did a big recital here at Carnegie Hall. My thoughts on the Mormon Art Festival have really changed over this process because I've never really thought of myself as Scott Holden, the Mormon pianist. I've thought of myself as I'm a pianist and I'm Mormon. And in a lot of ways, those worlds have been rather separate. So the chance to play an entire program of LDS composers and really celebrate my own personal religious heritage in a major venue was really transforming. I push very hard for my students to be well familiar with the great works of the great composers from around the world. And sometimes we bypass those things that are immediately right in front of us, our own culture. And this has given me a chance to find all kinds of new repertoire and new composers who I share a common faith with and who write in a diversity of styles and language that reflects everything of our current culture in the last 100 years. So I'm excited to be able to share more of this music with my own students and to continue to explore it and program it, and not necessarily just program it in a self-contained program of just LDS composers, but to mix it very equally and freely with those great masters that I've been playing for decades. Music will move the soul in a way that no other possibility exists. I love just looking at General Conference as the perfect paradigm. I mean, what do you have to do before you hear the president of the church speak? Well, there has to be music. And what's after the president speaks, after the prophet speaks, there's more music. Because what way, there'll be this incredible message, but how can you brand it into someone's soul, but only through music? Well, I'm very fortunate in my career that I get paid to make music and to teach music and to play concerts. But the thing is, at the end of a long day, I want to go turn on music. I'm not at work and then I'm done with work. I'm excited to go into my car and to listen to music on my drive home, to explore new music, to be transported to places that I wouldn't otherwise be. Much of life is full of things that are dull or monotonous. And music is an escape from that. So, music is spiritual because it connects me, I think, both to other people and composers, and to I believe music actually brings me to a more empathetic place because when I perform, I play expressions that composers have felt, things that maybe have not having experienced or felt, but I'm able to feel it because of those. So it brings me, much closer to other people, and it brings me to the divine. Maybe it's a little bit cliche, but to create is a divine thing. So, and to be able to play music and move people and inspire them is a powerful experience, one that I don't take lightly. A friend of mine once was saying why he thought sad music was so appealing. And he had the greatest answer. He said, it makes us feel like we're not alone. And I would say this with any emotion that's expressed in music. It makes me feel connected to other people and their life experience in a way that I couldn't understand solely by reading about it or watching it. The thing I've enjoyed most about the Mormon Arts Festival was this chance to perform in Carnegie Hall. I lived in New York City for about 10 years, so to return to my old stomping ground, I used to live in this neighborhood, was really powerful to walk on stage and see a lot of old familiar friends there. And really, this is a very selfish answer, but think about my life and the amazing blessings I've been given and opportunities, and to feel some of those things on stage at Carnegie Hall while expressing these incredible pieces has been very powerful. When I was a teenager and I had a hard day, I didn't necessarily want to talk to my parents about it or even my friends about it, but I wanted to put on a record, the old 12-inch vinyl thing. And I expressed myself by listening and later by creating music. People should be caring about music because this is a force that unites humanity together in a common language to an elevated state that they wouldn't normally be able to find without it. Yes, there are perhaps more practical professions. For me, I mean, I don't think I would keel over dead if I couldn't make music, but I think spiritually I would keel over dead. This is such an important part of my life, and it's something that I feel sort of chose me, and I tell my students, if you can think of anything else you would rather do with your life, then maybe do that. But if there's nothing else, if you're crazy enough, this is the right, the calling for you, because it's chosen you, and there's kind of no escape from it. Well, in a spiritual sense, I've attended many temple dedications. I cannot remember, frankly, a single thing that was ever been said, even though I remember at the time they seemed pretty important and powerful. But I can never deny the way I felt singing powerful hymns, united together and feeling really joined by those who were not seen at that presence in a way that only music could open me to that sensation and that feeling. Last night I had a chance to play a large recital in Carnegie Hall for LDS composers. This was a project that was many months in the making and frankly exhausting in my preparation. Generally getting up at 5 a.m. so I could start practicing and practicing as much during the day in addition to my teaching. So beforehand, it's a very high stress experience. But beforehand, I thought, I'm about to walk on stage and play in Carnegie Hall. This is really exciting. And I'm playing these pieces that I love and I get to share, that I'm passionate about, that the world actually doesn't know, and I get to share these. So that was really powerful. I played in Carnegie Hall a solo recital about 20 years ago, and that was quite a bit different experience. That was just more high stress. I've played a lot of concerts. But this was especially meaningful and powerful for me. I found some amazing pieces by living composers, by composers who have died. Some of this music exists only in handwritten manuscripts. That is completely unknown. And I'm very excited to include this music in my future concerts, my repertoire. It's first-rate music that we should be celebrating because I share a common religious faith with these composers. I don't necessarily think of these as LDS composers. They're first-rate composers who happen to be LDS, but yet were inspired by the same spiritual foundations. Something I felt a lot as growing up in the church, and I had no interest in pursuing business, and I was not interested in sports. I was interested in music and art, and sometimes this can be a little bit alienating. So to come to a community where there's people who are just like you, and you found your people, both in a spiritual sense, but in an artistic sense, to come together and celebrate this is very exciting. And the program I played showed such a diversity of styles. I was trying to think, what in this repertoire do these things share in common outside of them all by LDS composers? And I thought, there's actually nothing that they share in common. These pieces come in so many different forms. The only thing they share in common is that they have nothing in common. And I'd like to think that we as LDS people, we can share a common faith, but have so many different styles and backgrounds and means of expression and voices, all equal in of importance and need to be heard. And we can celebrate that diversity and not necessarily conform to a certain type. in playing this program, sorry, that's a long answer. In playing this program and choosing this music that Glenn Nelson had wanted to deem as Mormon music, I kept thinking, this doesn't sound like Mormon music. This doesn't sound like music of the spoken word. There's no familiar hymn tunes. But at the same time, I think there was some very powerful and personal expression. And we should be celebrating that. And it doesn't have to look necessarily like something you would hear as prelude music at sacrament meeting.